Hello everyone! In this video I'll be demonstrating how to paint and finish the Team Mystic Pendant kit. This is a fun and simple project because all of the parts that you need are contained in the kit. A few other supplies you'll want to have on hand would be scissors to trim the cord, a dish of water to rinse your brushes, and something on which to mix your paints. By the end of the video we'll have a pendant that looks something like this. Let's get started, shall we? Begin by using the sandpaper to smooth everything out. Once that's done, use a paper towel to remove any standing dust. If necessary, use a craft knife to get stringy bits out from the crevices. Now it's time to start the painting process. The kit comes with two brushes. We'll save the fluffier one for later on when we're doing the glossy finish. The one that comes more to a point will be best for applying the paint. The first step we're going to do is to water down some of the blue, get it nice and runny, and then we're going to start establishing where the lights and the darks need to be. Don't worry about getting it perfect at this stage because this is just an undercoat, so we can figure out how everything needs to go. Do keep it nice and thin because if your paint gets too thick at this stage it's going to be globby later on. Wash the blue over everything and pick out any areas that you think are going to need to be lighter. Dab them off with a paper towel. Now we're starting to get more of an idea of which areas are going to look best darker and which areas would be catching the light and would need to be lighter. So let's emphasize that even more. Keep adding layers of the watered down blue to establish where your darkest shadows will be. You can also start to add in some feathery textures, which will bring out more later on. Use some white to bring out the brightest highlight and to start blending everything together. Next we'll go in with some shadow colour. Create this by mixing blue with some white and some black to make a nice soft grey. Let's go ahead and get this background piece painted black so that we get more contrast. Now that we've established all of the light and dark areas, it's time to sort out the exact colour. I've decided that I want it to be this lovely soft grey. So I've mixed together some black, white and blue until I have a colour that I like. Don't worry about mixing your paints together perfectly, because those variations will make the pendant look more natural. I've blended my different shades of grey into all the areas that were previously the bright blue. It's looking pretty good. The eyes on this piece are quite small, so what we're going to do is create some eye patches using some black. Dab it on as best you can and then just clean it up with your brush. It's time to decide where your light source is coming from. I've arbitrarily selected the top right. That means anything above and right will be brighter and below and left will be darker. Keeping that in mind, let's brighten up the belly here. We're going to do some bright white at the top right and then blend that down into shades of grey. Now I'm going to start cleaning up the head crest by adding highlights at the top right, keeping my light source in mind. I'm also going to start adding some highlights to the tips of the wings, bringing those back out so that everything starts to look more dimensional. I've mixed together some umber and white to make a nice soft brown for the beak. Mix yourself a nice dark grey using the black and blue again, and add more shadowing along the sides of the body, and also add some dark shadows between the wing feathers. Here's where we're at so far. We have all of the lights and darks established and we have a nice colour. So the next stage will be cleaning everything up and adding contrast. Let's make the tops of the wings a nice bright white. That will really make it stand out. Also pick out some more highlights on the wing feathers and the crown. Mix your blue and white together to make different shades of grey for cleaning up different areas. On the breast area we needed the lighter grey, and then more for the edges we want a darker grey. I want to use blue for some darker shadows, but I'm going to mix in a little bit of the brown so it's not quite so bright. And then I'm going to use that same shade to add more shadows along the sides of the body and at the crest. Use pure white to bring out your brightest highlight. Here's where we're at so far. We have our lights and darks established, so the next stage is to clean everything up and add contrast. I'm adding some pure black under the head crest, right above the eyes to make them stand out better. I've mixed together about equal parts of blue and brown to make a nice shadowing colour. I'm going to add this in a few areas, not everywhere, because we want to get some nice variations going on. And also along the background to make that a little bit more interesting than just straight black. Continue adding shadows with different shades of grey and with some straight black until it starts to look more three-dimensional. Keep your hypothetical light source in mind. Mix up a secondary highlight colour by adding some blue to your white. Use this to add some variation to areas that have bright white highlights. Add some straight white onto one side of the beak to make that stand out, again keeping your light source in mind. To tie everything together, mix some brown into your white and add a few touches in some of the highlighted areas. Add a few darkest shadows underneath the brightest whites. And then we're going to finish everything off by painting the back. The painting process is now complete. Allow it to dry thoroughly before proceeding to the finishing stage. Now it's time for the glossy coating. Gently roll the tub of sealer to mix it without introducing air bubbles. Using the fluffy brush, apply the sealer over the entire piece. Work from one side to the other and try to go quickly, because if you go back over areas that have already started to dry, you're going to introduce more brush strokes. Allow the pendant to dry for quite some time, preferably overnight before adding the second coat. You can add more than 2 coats if you like, but I get bored after the second one and stop there. The piece needs to be really thoroughly dry before we move on to the next stage. so it's best to leave it overnight. At this point, you need to decide if you want a necklace or something to clip onto your bag. I'm going to first show you how to finish it as a necklace. Unravel one end of the cord a few inches. Take one of the 3 strands and thread that through the bead. Then tie a knot at the base to keep it in place. Fold those ends down and knot the whole thing together a couple of times. Slide the knots right up under the bead to hold it securely in place. Dab a little bit of the sealer on the base of the knot to keep it from unraveling, and then trim the short ends. For the other side of the cord, we need to make a loop. Fold the end down and then check to see about how big the loop needs to be to fit comfortably over your bead. Checking again to ensure it stays the right size before tightening. Dab some sealer on the base and then trim the short ends. To fasten your necklace, you'll simply place the loop over the bead and it will be held securely in place. To attach it to the pendant, fold the cord in half, thread the loop through the back of the pendant and then put the ends through the loop. Pull tight and it's now securely fastened. The other option is to finish this using a clip that you can then attach to your bag. To do this, fold the cord in half and thread the loop end through the clip. Decide on how long you want it and then knot it in place under the clasp. Slide the knots up right under the clasp and then pull tight. To attach it to the pendant, put the center loop through the back and thread the clasp up through the center loop. Before trimming these ends, let's dab on a little bit of the sealer to keep the knot from unraveling, and then trim them off. And with that, your pendant is now complete. Congratulations, and I must say yours looks smashing. I do hope that you've enjoyed making this kit with me. If for any reason you've been watching but don't yet have one, do make sure you click the card above to get your own pendant kit. That's all for now, so I'll see you next time. Bye friends!